Obsession. In Obsession, we meet Bear, a young man who is in love with his friend Nikki. The problem is that she has never seen the relationship the same way. When Bear finds a strange object called the One Wish Willow, a toy capable of granting wishes, he makes a wish that sounds simple in theory but is terrible in practice, that Nikki would love him more than anything else in the world.
I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the entire world.
The wish works, but far too quickly. Affection turns into dependence, dependence turns into obsession, and the situation starts taking increasingly disturbing turns. Without a doubt, it's an amazing movie and absolutely deserves all the hype it has been generating. The creator of the project is Curry Barker, a name many people already knew from YouTube. Before making it to theaters, he produced comedy and thriller videos on the channel That's a Bad Idea, alongside his friend Cooper Tomlinson.
No.
What am I thinking right now?
I don't know.
But horror had always been present in the group's projects. In 2023, Barker gained attention with the short film The Chair, which went viral and put his work on the radar of industry producers. Shortly afterward, he released the independent feature Milk and Cereal and began developing the idea that would later become Obsession. And believe it or not, Obsession had a budget of only $750,000. The film premiered at the Toronto Film Festival and sparked an intense bidding war among distributors interested in its distribution rights. Focus Features won the competition and brought the project to theaters. The result was impressive, more than $280 million worldwide. Yeah, I'd say it made a profit, and the story doesn't end there. Curry Barker has already confirmed his next feature film, Anything But Ghosts, which will take place in the same universe as Obsession. In addition, the director has already discussed the possibility of expanding the franchise with new films, and is also the newest filmmaker hired by A24 to direct the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Talk to me. In this movie, we follow Mia, a teenager who is still trying to cope with her mother's death. Her life changes when she and her friends discover a strange embalmed hand used to summon spirits. The rules seem simple. Just hold the hand, say, "Talk to me," and allow an entity to enter your body for a few seconds.
Talk to me.
The problem is that this supernatural game becomes increasingly popular among teenagers until one session goes horribly wrong. With a premise that mixes possession, addiction, and social media, the film became one of the biggest successes of modern horror. But before conquering Hollywood, directors Danny and Michael Filippus were already famous on the internet. The Australian twin brothers created the Raka Raka channel, which accumulated billions of views through action, comedy, and horror videos filled with practical effects, over-the-top fights, and pure chaos. While producing content for YouTube, they also worked behind the scenes on Australian productions, learning how professional film sets operated. When they decided to make their first feature film, they turned down offers from studios that wanted to change the story. Instead, they chose to maintain creative control and produce the project exactly the way they envisioned it, and the gamble paid off. Throughout the story, Mia begins believing she can communicate with her deceased mother through the summoned spirits. This causes her to dive deeper and deeper into that supernatural world, blurring the line between reality and illusion. Beyond the scares, the movie received praise for using possession as a metaphor for grief, social pressure, and even teenage drug use. The result was a massive critical and commercial success, becoming one of the most profitable productions in A24's history. The film cost $4.5 million and earned $92 million. After that, the brothers released Bring Her Back, which manages to be even better than Talk to Me. The movie follows siblings Andy and Piper, who, after losing their father, are sent to a temporary foster home. There, they are welcomed by Laura, an apparently kind woman who hides dark secrets. Little by little, the two become trapped in a nightmare. The film was also highly praised by audiences, and it has now been officially confirmed that Talk to Me is getting a sequel, showing that this is only the beginning of their careers as filmmakers. Backrooms. In Backrooms, we meet Clark, a frustrated architect whose life is falling apart due to financial problems, alcoholism, and the collapse of his marriage. Everything changes when he discovers something impossible hidden beneath his furniture store, a portal to an unknown dimension. After stepping through it, Clark finds the Backrooms, a gigantic labyrinth of yellow hallways, empty rooms, and fluorescent lights that seem to stretch on forever. Fascinated by the place, he begins exploring that world more and more deeply, without realizing he's drifting further away from reality itself. The concept had already been famous on the internet for years, but the movie transformed that simple urban legend into something much bigger. The film's director is Kane Parsons, better known online as Kane Pixels. His journey is one of the most impressive on this list. As a teenager, he taught himself animation and 3D modeling software, creating videos inspired by franchises like Attack on Titan and Portal. But everything changed in 2022 when he uploaded the short film The Backrooms found footage to YouTube. Using visual effects that he created almost entirely by himself, he transformed a relatively simple creepypasta into a terrifying and incredibly realistic experience. The video quickly went viral, racking up millions of views within days and drawing attention for the professional-level quality achieved by someone so young. From there, Kane expanded the idea into a series of videos that further developed the mythology of the Backrooms. The phenomenon became so massive that Hollywood eventually came knocking on his door. While still a teenager, he was given the opportunity to turn his creation into a feature film produced by A24. In the movie, that mythology expands on a much larger scale. As Clark disappears into the endless corridors of the Backrooms, his therapist, Mary Klein, begins investigating the case and becomes entangled in the same mystery. As the investigation progresses, clues emerge about the secret experiments conducted by the Async Research Institute and the creatures inhabiting that reality. The result was an absolute phenomenon. Backrooms earned more than $250 million and became the highest-grossing film in A24's history. Critics praised the movie's ability to transform an internet phenomenon into something accessible to mainstream audiences, while preserving the unsettling atmosphere that made the original video so popular. Not bad for an idea that started as a video made by a teenager in his bedroom. Even with all that success, Kane Parsons has stated that he intends to rest after years of non-stop work and would rather develop new original ideas before returning to the Backrooms universe. He has also made it clear that he values complete creative control over his projects and has no interest in taking over major franchises simply for prestige. At just 20 years old, he is already seen by many as one of the most promising voices in modern horror. Lights Out. In Lights Out, we're introduced to Rebecca, a young woman who begins to realize that her younger brother, Martin, is going through the same nightmare that haunted her childhood. Every time the lights go out, a mysterious figure named Diana appears in the darkness, and worse still, she seems to be directly connected to their mother. With a simple but incredibly effective premise, the movie turned the universal fear of the dark into one of the most talked about horror films of 2016. What's most interesting is that the man behind this success didn't start in Hollywood. Before directing major productions, David F. Sandberg was an independent filmmaker in Sweden who created short films and animations with virtually no budget. In 2013, he decided to shoot a short film called Lights Out inside his own apartment. The project used very few effects, almost no resources, and starred his wife, Lotta Lawson. Even so, the video went viral on YouTube, accumulating millions of views. The idea was so good that it caught the attention of James Wan, one of the biggest names in modern horror. He was the one who helped turn that small short film into a feature-length movie, and expanding the idea worked extremely well. In the film, Rebecca tries to protect Martin while discovering that Diana isn't just another supernatural creature. The entity has a disturbing connection to their mother's past and seems determined to keep that connection alive. One of the movie's greatest strengths is how it takes an extremely simple concept and explores it to its fullest potential. After all, almost everyone has been afraid of what might be hiding in a dark room. Produced for only $4.9 million, the movie grossed more than $148 million worldwide and became a huge success. After that, Sandberg directed Annabelle Creation, the Shazam movies, and recently returned to horror with Until Dawn. In addition, he's already attached to several upcoming horror projects, including a new version of the Amityville horror, Shelby Oaks. In this film, we follow Mia, a woman who never accepted the disappearance of her younger sister, Riley. 12 years earlier, Riley was part of a paranormal investigation group that produced internet videos exploring supposedly haunted locations. During an investigation in the abandoned town of Shelby Oaks, the entire group disappeared without a trace. The case seemed impossible to solve until Mia receives a tape containing the final recording made by the young investigators. From that moment on, she becomes obsessed with finding answers and discovers that something much darker may be behind the disappearance. The director's story is almost as interesting as the movie itself. Chris Stuckman was already one of YouTube's most well-known film critics long before entering the film industry. Since 2009, he has built an audience of millions by reviewing new releases, discussing classics, and sharing his passion for cinema. But Stuckman's dream was always to direct his own movies. In 2021, he announced Shelby Oaks and launched a Kickstarter campaign that raised more than $1.3 million, setting a record for a horror film on the platform. The project gained even more momentum thanks to the support of Mike Flanagan, creator of series such as The Haunting of Hill House, who joined as an executive producer and helped guide the filmmaker through his directorial debut. Returning to the movie itself, one of its most interesting aspects is the way the narrative constantly changes styles. At times it feels like an investigative documentary, at others it takes the form of found footage, then it shifts into a more traditional horror film. The movie drew attention precisely because it showed that Stuckman didn't just want to make a tribute to the horror movies he'd spent years reviewing. He wanted to create something with its own identity. After its theatrical release through Neon, the director made it clear that he intends to remain focused on his filmmaking career. Iron Lung. The story of this film takes place in a future devastated by an unexplained cosmic event that caused stars and habitable planets to disappear. Amid humanity's collapse, a prisoner named Simon receives an almost suicidal mission to pilot a small rusted submarine alone through an ocean made entirely of human blood. With no windows and guided only by malfunctioning instruments, he must photograph specific locations while something enormous seems to be watching him from the depths. The result is a suffocating blend of science fiction, cosmic horror, and claustrophobia. This movie came about when someone already known by millions of people online saw an opportunity. Mark Fishbach, better known as Markiplier. For more than a decade, he built one of YouTube's biggest gaming channels, particularly through horror games. But the origin of Iron Lung begins with David Szymanski, creator of the independent game released in 2022. Fascinated by the atmosphere of the game, Markiplier saw enormous cinematic potential in its premise. Determined to turn it into something bigger, he purchased the rights, financed the production with his own money, and spent years developing the project. He even turned down an appearance in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie so he could fully dedicate himself to the film. The effort paid off. Released in 2026, Iron Lung became a success. With an estimated budget of around $3 million, the movie earned more than $50 million worldwide. In addition to directing, Markiplier also wrote, produced, edited, and starred in the film, proving that his ambitions extended far beyond internet videos. The adaptation significantly expanded the mythology of the game, deepening the mystery of the Blood Ocean and humanity's insignificance in the face of the unknown. After the success, Markiplier revealed that he intends to continue working in film. He has suggested that he may adapt other games in the future, but has also made it clear that he wants to create original stories and explore new genres. Skinamarink. In this movie, we follow Kevin and Kaylee, two young siblings who wake up in the middle of the night and realize that something is terribly wrong inside their house. Their father has disappeared without explanation. The rooms seem different, and little by little they discover that the doors and windows have simply ceased to exist. Trapped inside that strange environment, the two try to distract themselves by watching old cartoons, while the darkness around them seems to take on a life of its own. Objects begin moving on their own, voices appear out of nowhere, and an invisible presence starts watching the children. What made Skinamarink so widely discussed was its unusual approach. Instead of relying on traditional scares, the film tries to recreate the feeling of waking up alone in the middle of the night as a child, and believing that something is hiding in the darkness. Behind this experience is Kyle Edward Ball, a Canadian filmmaker who came directly from the internet. Before the feature film, he created the YouTube channel Bite-Sized Nightmares, where subscribers shared their worst childhood nightmares. Using those stories, he produced short films filled with distorted images, unsettling sounds, and ordinary locations transformed into something terrifying. In 2020, he combined many of those ideas into the short film Heck, which eventually became the foundation for Skinamarink. When he decided to turn the concept into a feature film, he worked with a budget of only $15,000 and shot the entire movie in a single week, using the house where he grew up. And perhaps that simplicity is exactly what helped the film stand out. The camera rarely shows the characters' faces. Instead, it remains focused on empty hallways, dark ceilings, and seemingly unimportant corners. That choice divided audiences, but it also helped create a unique atmosphere. After the movie leaked online, users across multiple social media platforms began sharing scenes and theories, turning Skinamarink into a viral phenomenon. The result was remarkable. A movie made for $15,000 ended up earning millions and became one of the biggest examples of so-called analog horror in cinema. The success opened major doors for Kyle Edward Ball. His next project will be The Land of Nod, produced by A24 with support from important names such as Elijah Wood. Although the story is still being kept secret, expectations are high to see how the director expands his style of horror in a much larger production. So, do you know any other YouTuber who has the potential to make a successful movie in theaters? Let us know in the comments. On screen right now is a video where we show horror movie characters you trusted but shouldn't have. Click and watch it. I'll see you there.